Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? All right, we are ready. I think we've worked through all of our technical difficulties. Now we just got a cup issue. So sounds like someone's going to get some cups because it's hard to drink cups. I mean, I guess you can. We're getting past the bottle around if you guys are good with that, you know. But I want to thank you guys for having me here tonight. I know you have busy schedules with between work and school and all those great things. So I'm really excited to be here. Um, my name is Mike Salters. You were you at the presentation earlier at noon today? Okay, you look like someone from the Fix Lab that I saw earlier today. Um, but my name is Mike Salters, and I actually work for the state of Florida. My title is Associate Chief Information Security Officer, but I actually reside here on campus in the Malakowski Hall, and I have been brought in to basically set up a student security operations center in Malakowski that actually is going to provide cyber support to our state agencies. And so Andre and Colin are and Julian are the three undergrads that are in the Cybersecurity Operations Center today. Colin is actually getting ready to do an assignment with the Department of Management Services, which I'm really excited about. And Andre doesn't know yet, but I'm queuing him up for the Department of Transportation. And so the goal here is right to give folks in the room hands-on experience doing actual cyber work, and so that when you graduate, you can hopefully get an offer from the state of Florida. But if nothing else, you now have experience that you can take with you to go on in your career. There is a graduate program which is focused on research. And so with the graduate, I have one graduate, one PhD student who is actually just started this fall semester. He's doing his research project on network intrusion. And I'm working with him to determine what state data can we provide to assist with his research. So it varies. It depends on when you graduate. So in Colin's case, he's a one-hit wonder, one semester and out, because he graduates in December. In case of Andre, he is a junior, so he's going to be around for another couple of years, right? And so is really I like to offer as much flexibility as possible. But literally, we just stood this program up a few months ago, so we still are working through some of the tweaks. But definitely talk to one, I can come back, but two, talk to Andre, talk to Colin, talk to Julian, and they can definitely give you more information about what we're doing in Malakowski Hall in the CSOC. All right. So I am going to be talking. I know you guys have spent all this time and energy building up your technology skills. Everyone's a computer science major, cyber focus, right? And so programming and networking, all this technical stuff you guys have been focused on for as long as you've been here. How many folks in the room have taken any sort of leadership development course? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, less than half, way less than half, right? And one of the most important things that you are going to require when you go into the real world is leadership skills. And so prior to my time at the state of Florida, I was at Target for 30 years. And I'm going to show you guys my claim to fame at Target here momentarily. But when I was at Target, I did campus recruiting. And so one of the things and actually this presentation that I'm doing today was something that I would go to campuses every fall and share with the students in terms of the importance of leadership. Because everyone's like, oh, you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't communicate, you're not going to get a job. If you can't influence, you're not going to make a whole lot of money. So there's this leadership aspect that personally, I don't think colleges stress enough, that is going to be very important as you embark on your postgraduate careers. So I want to talk a little bit about leadership today. So if you thought this was going to be some cool technology, oh, we're going to be talking about vulnerabilities and hacking techniques, not happening today. So feel free to leave now. But leadership is one of the most important things that you will need going out into the real world. And so I did want to spend some time talking about that today. All right. So a little bit about me. So I'm actually one of the, oh, it's going to make me log in. All right, I'm going to skip this. So one of the other things that I normally do is I have another presentation around building out your LinkedIn profile and how to make sure that you have a very sort of interesting and intriguing LinkedIn profile, because that's what all employers use these days. And so I like to sort of highlight a couple of things on my LinkedIn profile, but I don't feel like signing in, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to talk to you. So I was at Target for 30 years, and so I started at Target, and I was basically in application development. I was a project manager doing application development work. I had the luxury of working across financial systems, credit systems, stores, distribution. I sort of tell people in my 30 years there, I literally supported every sort of platform there was. I spent time in infrastructure, and my last 10 years at Target was in, well, I guess last 12 years where it was in cybersecurity. And so for some of you, I know you guys were all babies when this happened, but It was Eastern Europe. It was not Russia. This data breach happened 3 months after I moved into cybersecurity. And at the time, I literally was the security operations manager. And so it was my job to make sure this doesn't happen, right? And so one of the things I like to say about the Target breach, it almost killed me. But what do they say? What's the saying? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? I am much stronger in the cybersecurity space coming out of this breach. Um, the Basically what happened is one of our vendors got phished, and they used the vendor's credentials to access our target environment. The server that was in the DMZ that they accessed had some unpatched vulnerabilities that they exploited, and they were able to exploit those vulnerabilities to get inside the main network. And they downloaded a bunch of hacking tools onto the server that was in the DMZ, and then they proceeded to do reconnaissance and all kinds of bad stuff. So this happened. I think it was 2 days before Thanksgiving. The threat actors downloaded malware to over 50,000 registers in less than 24 hours. And sort of one of the big jokes after the fact at Target was, we've never been able to download that fast ever in the history. Like, all I want to know is, how did they download to that many POS registers that fast? So it was everywhere. It was absolutely everywhere. And the way that we found out is we didn't even find it. It was a Secret Service that contacted us. And so what was happening is our guests started seeing fraudulent charges on their credit cards, and they were contacting their bank. And so the banks, all the banks now, even back then, this is 10 years ago, had the ability to see that, okay, hey, we're getting all of these calls from guests about fraudulent charges. What is the single point of purchase that's the same for all of them, right? And so when they looked at the purchase transactions, they saw Target on every single one of them, right? And so that's how they deduced that, oh, it must be Target. Secret Service reached out. I can remember it like yesterday, sitting in the room with Secret Services on the phone, and they're saying, we believe you guys have a problem. And I was there with my CIO, my CISO, and they are like, nope, not us. And so they were there, we said, well, you need to provide us with more information. And so Secret Service like, yep, we're going to give you some additional information. And we hung up, and my CISO was like, go find out what's going on, right? So as I'm pulling my team together, we're sort of trying to figure out what's going on. Secret Service sent us a receipt and said that this receipt is from one of the affected cards. And the cash, so on the receipt, it shows what store, what cash register. And so it happened to be, so Target is based out of Minneapolis. This receipt was from a store in Wisconsin that was maybe an hour away. So we sent our asset protection to go grab the register, bring it back to the forensics lab so that we can maybe figure out what was going on. AP went and got the machine, brought it back. They're doing forensics. And now this is like Saturday morning. I get a call from the forensics team, and they're like, you need to come in here. And so I come in, and they're like, you see this code right here? I'm like, yeah, that's the malware. And so we were able to confirm that, yes. And what they did was they named the malware a standard system file, a misspelled system file, right? So it took us a while, like, okay. And obviously once we were able to identify the malware, then we were able to immediately put in changes because what was happening, the malware was command and control. So the malware would be reaching, it would collect the credit card numbers out of memory, and then it would send it out to the master server. So we broke the connection to the command and control server, which sort of stopped the bleeding. And then we went through and cleaned up all those registers to physically remove the malware. And I mean, that was, I think, 3 days worth of work. I don't think I got any sleep for 3 days. Um, Question? Windows 2000. Oh, or the registers. We were running it was an older version of Windows, which we don't use anymore. Yeah, because Windows is too open. And so we actually went to a proprietary today, Target runs a proprietary operating system on the registers, right? So that you can sort of easily be able to attack those machines in any way. Um, that we are using, it's a Linux based OS. At least it was. At least it was when I left 6 months ago. So don't hold me to that. Um, so the next 12 months, I like to say I learned more about cybersecurity the next 12 months than I could have learned in a lifetime, right? From what went wrong to how to fix it to, and actually my, they, after the breach, they fired the CEO, they fired the CIO, they fired the CISO, they fired my direct VP. I mean, the big joke was, I think I report to the board of directors now because there's no one above me. Um, and the fact that the fact that everyone was gone, I actually had to, because there were lawsuits all over the place. Attorney generals, yeah, I mean, everyone's suing us. And so since I was the only one that actually knew what happened, that year after the breach, I was in the courtroom more than I was in the office. I had testimony and depositions. Like I said, I spent so much time with the lawyers. I'm like, if I ever get out of this, I will never go back and talk to lawyers again. Um, but it really turned out, I think, from a target standpoint, the saving grace in terms of my testimony was that so we were able to see that yes, there were signs of the breach, right? Um, and my team had actually responded to the alert, and we had notified the infrastructure team, the server technology team, and we told them that, hey, something's going on with this server. You need to either shut it down, patch it, or swap it out. Back then, Target's rule was do not, we call it a system freeze. You don't change it, you don't touch anything, you don't change anything, you don't, unless it's absolutely mission critical, don't fix anything, right? So when we notified them and said, hey, you need to rebuild the server, the response was, oh, we're in a system freeze. We're not going to look at it until after the holidays. Thus, it stayed out there, right? And as I was in the courtroom and they're asking me like, okay, well, obviously you found it, like, why didn't you do more, right? I pulled out my playbook and I said, we did exactly what the playbook said to do. Now, are you asking me, that I should have, noticed something different and updated the playbook on the fly and at least in terms of my testimony, right? What I was able to really sort of really help them see was we followed our process to the letter, right? And if you're going to, and they sort of realize that, well, it's kind of hard for us to penalize you for following your process to the letter kind of thing. And we obviously end up paying lots of money but over the next 2 to 3 years, we built out the most robust cybersecurity platform in the world. Target still has a world-class security team. When the breach happened, our security team was roughly 50 people. When I left Target 6 months ago, it was over 500. So and the nice thing too, for at least for those in security, after a breach, you say, "Oh, we need this and we need that," and it's like buy whatever you want, get whatever you need, right? Which was cool because as a cybersecurity, analyst, I got an opportunity to just to play with all these different tools and do all this fun stuff. So yes. Target got the brunt of it. Target had to basically, for example, like we provided 40 million people with credit monitoring services, right? Obviously, we fired all leadership that had anything to do with it, so they all were impacted, right? And I think, and I think back to, I honestly believe one of the reasons they had to keep me around because I knew what happened and I needed to testify. But then two, after everything sort of happened, I think they were afraid to get rid of me because I knew where the dead bodies were buried. So and so yeah, so it was definitely as I look back, probably the most amazing experience that I could have ever have gone through. I didn't think there were days I didn't think I was going to make it. I worked, 7 days a week, 10 hours a day for like 6 months. Um, but as I look back and what I learned from that experience was absolutely amazing. And it really made me into sort of it gave me that passion for cybersecurity because after that, I guarantee you, my message to anyone who worked with me, that will never happen again on my watch, right? And it didn't. And so I like to share that story as it just sort of helps plant that seed in terms of, oh, I know my cyber. So, as much as I'm going to be talking about leadership, I've been in the trenches. I know how these things work. And literally one of the worst breaches ever, I had the opportunity to participate and learn from. All right. So probably the biggest thing coming out of that though was the leadership skills that I gained from it. Having to testify. Who has had to testify in court before? One. How was that? Did you have to prep or anything, or did they just put you in the room? Yes. Yeah, you got to prepare for these things. My biggest thing with the courtroom was, I like to talk. I can sit here and I can just blab, blah, blah, blah. And so the biggest issue that I had in my prep was, right, it would be a, yes, no question, right? And I would be like, oh, well, no, because, right? And the attorney was like, do not add any additional information. If it's a yes, no question, you say yes or no. And then you pause and you stop. And if they want to ask you more questions, let them ask you more questions, right? And so little things like that just started to add up in terms of, oh, okay, this is how I need to communicate in this setting, and this is how I need to communicate in that setting, right? And this is how I need to work with these people, and this is how I need to work with those people. So I would say, since graduating, I have and well, since getting my undergraduate, I did go back and get my master's degree. But I would say I've spent more time in leadership development training since graduating than anything else. I've done way more on the leadership development side than I've done on the technology side. Obviously, I sort of moved up when I left Target. I was a director, senior director, so I was moving up through the ranks. Personally, I wanted the money. I get, I like cybersecurity, right? Target's a cool company, but I wanted things, right? I wanted a family. I wanted nice things. And so to move up in the organization, right, requires good leadership skills. If you can't communicate, they're not going to make you a director. That's for sure. And so I began to just realize how important all this leadership was, all this leadership was. So I just want to sort of share that with you as we are going to now dive into, now that I've set the stage, now we're going to sort of dive into this leadership discussion. What I want you to do is pull out your cell phones. Anyone that's got a cell phone, go ahead and pull it out. And we're going to do, there's a tool called Mentimeter, and we're going to do a little exercise here. Yep, there you go. Hmm. I'm trying to figure out. If you got in, you should see a question asking about what are the qualities of leadership. I think I saw good communication out there already. So just start putting in. There's one. There's no wrong answer. Two, you can put in as many answers as you want. Um, and so just start throwing out what you feel are leadership qualities. Stop sharing your instructions. There we go. Okay, so you can now see um, sort of the word map here in terms of right what you feel are those key qualities of a leader. Let me move this thing up a little bit. There we go. And so I see right there in the middle of the page, boom, communication. Communication obviously is one of the key aspects of leadership. And in terms of my three C's, communication is truly one of those C's. Communicative, good communication, even listening is a part of communication, right? So I love the fact that I'm just seeing all of these aspects related to communication, communication, communication. Empathy, oh, that's a good one. Empathy in terms of really being able to work with others and understand, right, how they like to work, how they think. Having that empathy goes a long way. Motivational. That is the my. I'm going to show you my definition of leadership talks about motivation, and so all of these are great. Decision making, passion, smart, all those things are a part of leadership. And when I talk about the three C's, right, the first C is competence, right? And competence is all of these things. It's being able to do all of these things, being competent enough to be able to communicate, to be smart, right? To have empathy, right? When you can master all those things, you will become a competent leader. Okay. So stop sharing that one. And I'm going to go back. This is a laundry list of leadership qualities. I saw most of these on the as on my view, I can see both, and I see a lot of the qualities on the traits of good leadership were identified by all of you. So I got a warm feeling in my heart right now because you guys understand this stuff. Right? If this page was blank, right, I would be really nervous. But I feel that you've heard enough, or you've been around other leaders that you really sort of understand what's important. Now, you look at this list, right, and can you really do all of these things? Maybe, but it's I can never go to someone and say, hey, I need you to master all 35 traits of good leadership, right? And so that's why I broke it down to three things, right? And I think based on, and part of this is based on where you are in your career, right? Um, I like this breakout because it really is aligned, at least in my opinion, to how you continue to. Oh, okay. Uh, how you continue to grow. So the personal qualities. This is about you. These are things that you can pretty much manage somewhat independently. You don't need someone to make you honest. You don't need someone, right? Someone can't make you self-aware, right? And so as I think about, high school, college, you should be focusing on some of these personal qualities that set the stage for being a good leader, right? And then and especially, as you get into, your third and fourth year of college and you get into the job market, there's more interaction with others. You got to start working more with others. I mean, obviously, if you played sports in high school, some of these interpersonal skills may be required a little bit sooner. But I really start talking about, by the time you get out of college, you need to have these interpersonal and communication skills down. You need to be able to communicate effectively. You need to be able to build relationships, right? You need to be able to inspire and motivate others, right? And then as you grow in your career and as you want to sort of move up, whether you're starting your own company or trying to lead a company, those strategic abilities become really important. I honestly, that visionary thinking, that was probably the thing that was hardest for me, because it's one of those where, right, you just sort of take a blank sheet of paper, you get a problem and you got a blank sheet of paper, and it's kind of like, how do we solve this? And but solve it in a way that it will never come back ever in 10 years from now, kind of thing. And so having that vision, like, where do we want to be in 10 years, was something, it just took time for me to gain experience, to learn from others, to really get good at that. But some of the other accountability and critical thinking, those are definitely things that you will be able to leverage sort of day one when you get into a new job. Okay, so let's go back. For this one, it's going to require and I didn't bring any pens or pencils, so you guys are going to have to figure out. This is going to be your challenge for the day. So I'm going to need for you. So the answers to each question is A, B, or C, and I'm going to need for you to track your own answers. So whether you just open up another app, your notes app, and just capture, A, B, or C, or you want to write it down, or you've got a partner who has a pen and can track his and track yours. I need for you to make sure that you're keeping track of how you answered each question. And it looks like I'm on question 2. So let me go back. Did we miss question 1? And my mouse doesn't like me. Come on. Yeah. Well, I got the down arrow. I got the arrow. It's got me in. No, there should be a. Oh, here we go. I got it. I got it. Get out of there. There we go. Awesome. So the first question is, how do you manage serious conflict within a team? All right. Select an answer and capture it. All right. We're about halfway there. I see 16, 17 out of 33. We're up to 25 out of 33.
So we could have people come up and get food while we.
That's a great idea. Food is ready. So we'll do this while you're eating. So let's get in line. All right, we're going to keep going here. So you should have responded to questions 1 and 2. I'm moving on to question 3. Question 3. Here we go. Question 3. If someone is highly skilled and motivated, they are, or they should. If you got kicked out of menti.com, the on the top of the slide there, you'll see the code to get back in. If you have no intentions of ever being a leader, you don't have to answer any of the questions. We're going to move a little more quickly because I am way behind schedule. I know. I know. Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, I know that this was scheduled till 7. So if you do need to leave, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Feel free. I'm going to do my best to see if I can get invited back and talk to you guys some more. I love this stuff. And so we can talk more about the target breach or other things too. So, yeah, definitely, if you've got to go, please don't hang around just for me. Let's move on to question number 4. The best way to ensure that the team meets its goal is to. Now, do you guys feel that as you're answering these questions, do you feel that these are real life scenarios that you've sort of had to work through so far? Either school or job. I'm thinking that as I looked at the questions, I'm like, these questions should be relatable to everybody. Okay, next question. There's an 8-hour deadline for a project that requires 16 hours. So I would 8-hour project, 8 hours left, 16 hours of work. All right. Next question. Poor performance should be. I'm seeing a trend. All right, we're moving on. You need to develop and apply a new social media strategy. So I would. And honestly, I don't want you to think about these questions. I want you to react and say, this is what I would do. Right. Because in the real world, in real life, many times it's your knee jerk reaction is sort of what's instinctive, right? Um, if we all sat and thought about, oh, how should I talk to this person, we would all be better at it. But many times, right, there's a deadline, there's a conflict, and it's instinctive in terms of how you react. So don't think too much about the questions. Just answer quickly. All right, we have a couple more questions left. I like to, when it comes to making decisions, and as you're going to see, right, mostly A's is a type of leadership, mostly B's is a type of leadership, mostly C's is a type of leadership. There's no wrong leadership. When it comes to leadership, you need all types, right? And I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each type. Okay, next question. I have someone starting on the team, so I. And for those of you who are leaving, We will be sending out the presentation. So for some reason, if you didn't get a chance to be here for the entire thing, you will have the ability to look at it offline. Okay. And I think great leaders. Oh, everyone's gravitating towards a certain type of leadership style. All right. I think last question. When asked whether I like to serve my team, I do what? That's awesome. All right. Let's see what you guys got here. Let me switch over to. So here are the results. Um, and this is why I wanted you to keep score, because if you answered A, give yourself 1 point. If you answered B, give yourself 2 points. If you answer C, give yourself 3 points. And then the idea is that you add up, right, all your responses to get a total, which should be somewhere between 12 and 36. All right. So if your score is low, that means that you are a dictator. And that's your style. And like I said, that's not a bad thing. That is definitely not a bad thing, right? If there is a urgent situation that needs to be taken care of now, you want an authoritarian. You want someone making decisions saying, we're doing this and we're going now, right? You don't want someone, let's think about this, right? Now, when you are sort of always telling people what to do, right? People will get pissed off and be like, hey, who are you to tell me what to do? I don't like being told what to do, right? And so it can be demoralizing, demotivating, right? And so, one of the things I like to talk about is, sometimes flexing your leadership style, right? But I've used this style before, especially in urgent situations. I talk about the target breach, right? Those first 3 days, I was a dictator. It was go, 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 right? Um, all right. So then if you're in the mid range, which I think most of you are, that means that you are a democratic leader, right? You want input from everyone, right? You don't want to sort of share in the decision making, and the democratic style is really good at building trust, and being and establishing good relationships with the team. Um, but you don't want this kind of leadership in a high pressure situation, right? Some sort of emergency, you don't necessarily have time to sort of sit down and have all these little democratic discussions and have everybody vote on the answer. And then the last one at the bottom is delegator. And um, I like this style. It's probably the least effective in many ways, but I like this style because it puts the ownership on everybody else, right? It forces them to take ownership. With the both democratic as well as the dictatorship, that's putting more pressure on that and more ownership on that leader. Whereas I think they call it laissez-faire, is really delegating everything. And what is where that scenario works or that style works is really like when I left Target, my team all had 5 to 10 years of experience. They all knew what they were doing. They all knew what to do, right? And so it was easy for me to say, "Hey, we're going to do this," and they all could run with it and just come back, come sort of report back because I had built that trust. I knew they had the expertise. I had no concerns. I knew they would bring problems to me, right? And so I gave them greater independence. So if you do have an experienced team, the delegating the delegator is a good method to use. Okay, that makes sense. Any questions on that? Has anyone gone through a leadership assessment exercise like that before? Right. And so at the end, and is here in the presentation, I've got some links and because they are free leadership assessments online. And so I was telling Jake that, I try to do a leadership assessment about every couple years to see where I'm at, right? Because things change, my team changes, I change, and it's a good way to just get a feel for my leadership style and is it changing and which way is it changing, right? But I recommend that you do these assessments because, like today, right, you had never done it before, and the idea is you're going to walk away, and if you're sort of going, "Oh, I'm a dictator," right? Okay, maybe I need to focus a little bit more on empathy, or maybe I need to focus on delegating a little bit more, right? And this is a great way for you to identify what things you need to work on related to leadership, right? All right. So, there was that laundry list of all of these leadership qualities, right? And I'm sure you guys can master them all. But I can't. I don't have time to talk about all of them. And so the three that I feel are most important, that have been most impactful for me, and I think are actually really important being in a technical and being in technology and being in a technical role, are competence, communication, and collaboration. Um, Competence is not technical competence, but leadership competence, right? So you've got to know how to lead a team, and you got to know how to lead that vision, and you have to know how to lead yourself, right? And so being able to understand how to flex your style, how to tailor your message, because if I'm talking to the CISO or versus I'm talking to Andre, the way that I am going to talk to them is going to be very different, right? And so I can be a lot more technical with Andre. I got to be a lot less technical with the chief information security officer, right? And so these are that competence is really just about taking the time, building your leadership skills, continuing to assess yourself in order to get better. Communication. It always blows me away because you say communication, but it means like 15 different things, right? And so what I really wanted to show here is like when someone says communication, right? Well, what do you mean? what does that actually mean, right? Are you talking about just being clear in what I'm communicating? Because you do need to be clear. Does that mean that I am actually hearing you, right? Because communication is two-way. So as much as you're listening to me, right? Are you actually listening? Right. And one of the things that I really had to work on was active listening. And what I did was, or at least what I was told, a couple of things I was told, I think I only did one of them. One of the things I was told was when someone says something to you, say it back to them. And that sort of shows that you're listening, right? The other way is just to be engaged, just nonverbal, right? You're leaning in, you're nodding, right? That's active listening, right? But if I am leaning back with my arms crossed, right? You're going, he's not listening to me, right? That is an important, that last one at the bottom, nonverbal communication. Oh my God. When it comes to Zoom meetings, I'm one that loves the camera on because 80% of your communication is nonverbal. And so I want to see your eyes. I want to see your body language. I want to see that smirk on your face, right? Because that's going to tell me a lot more than the words coming out of your mouth, right? And so and that's one of the things we hear about, well, we want to bring people back to the office, back to the office. Nonverbal communication is the primary driver behind that because there's so much that gets communicated nonverbally. Storytelling, as you grow in your career, right? Telling like my Target story, right? Trust me, I've told that story 1,000 times, right? Um, and then it's now to the point where, right, I can tell that people are like, wow, right? Which like, okay, I must be a good storyteller, right? Um, to get folks engaged and inspired, storytelling goes a long way. Adapting your communication style. I've talked about empathy, authenticity. All these things sort of boil up under communication. And I mean, I literally have taken like week-long classes on just communication, right? Because it's that important. And then the last one, collaboration. This is being able to work with others. You can't do anything in a vacuum. Even if you own your own company and you're a company of one, you're still going to have to work with other people. And so that ability to collaborate is going to be super important. The thing that I really want to call out, what I felt was really important prior to getting into a leadership role was, it says a little bit something different here. It says influence over authority, but what I like to say is influence without authority, right? So how good are you at influence someone? How good are you as an analyst influence your manager, influence your director? You don't have the authority. Your director can say, do this, right? But how good are you at being able to say, well, no, I don't want to do this. I want to do that. And here's why, and be able to influence, right, without that authority. That is coming, and when you go into your first organization, that is going to be one of the most important things that you are going to have to do is to influence without authority. Because if you can influence without authority, you're going to have it down when you get the authority, right? And then this shared responsibility, right? When it comes to collaboration, right? There shouldn't be one person telling everybody what to do, right? It shouldn't be that if something goes wrong, right, it's all my fault because I was the leader of the team, right? We all work together. We all share the responsibility. We all share the success. We all share the failure. And you really need to think about collaboration as we're one team. Um, and that is something that honestly, I think in terms of you guys are getting some good opportunities to collaborate here, right? The projects you guys work on, the way that you have to sort of work together on some of these efforts, that is probably the one thing that I would say is a good thing at the university level is they do sort of try to force you to collaborate. And that's a good thing because that is one of the most important things that you can do in preparing for your career. Like I said, I'll send this to you. These are just the list of free online leadership assessment tests. If you felt what we went through on Mentimeter was helpful, I would recommend checking out one of these leadership assessments. These are a little more in depth in that they will tell you exactly your style and then tell you exactly what you need to do to improve upon it. Some of these you can just take the test. Some of these you have to like register, but they're all free. So that is all I've got for you. So I'm going to hang around for a little bit. Once again, if you got to go, you got to go. I really appreciate those of you who are able to stay late. Otherwise, I'll be hanging out here for those who have questions.